Welcome back to the Nurburgring as the cars for the bookertrack.com Caterham Superlight R300 Championship make their way up to the grid. Darren Burke took victory in the first race of the weekend, but the last time we saw the cars in action was back in Blighty. It was at Brands Hatch where Paul Wilson was on pole position for the first race, although Ian Payne made a better start. As he led, Paul Wilson was busy battling his way past James Sharrock. Sharrock squeezed him coming out of Clark Curve. Wilson tried again going into paddock, and that didn't work either. As Wilson spun, Flick Haig had nowhere to go. Ian Payne led the way, but ex-Formula 3000 racer Mark Shaw was right on his tail. The two of them ran nose to tail coming out of Clark Curve, and it was a virtual dead heat at the flag. Payne taking his first win of the year. That gave him pole for race 2, but Shaw made a better getaway and he led heading up towards paddock, although Payne challenged hard on the inside line. We lost Stuart Simpson early on into the pit lane, and Cliff Murphy parked by the side of the road. Richard Borton was in the gravel, he was going no further, and James Sharrock pitted having put liquid down on the road at Clark Curve. He was going no further, and the liquid caught out many at the last right-hander. Paul Wilson was the first to hit it. He ran wide, but he survived, albeit with lots of time lost. Magma Happel went off the road. He was joined by Jonathan Ramsey in an impact. And they weren't the only ones. The gravel trap soon filled up. As out on track, Terry Langley, in his first outing in a Superlight, watched Mark Shaw and Adam Ballon run wide. Langley worked his way up into third place at the flag. It was a second win of the weekend for Ian Payne, with Mark Shaw just defending second from Langley. In the championship, it's now Shaw ahead of Paul Wilson. Ian Payne is third equal with Peter Ratcliffe. Magma Happel is fifth, and James Sharrock rounds out the top six. Race 2 of the weekend about to get underway. Darren Burke, new to the championship, has certainly made a point this weekend. He's on pole position. Drivers now look towards the lights that go out, and away they go. So Burke, after his win yesterday, gets the good start that he needs, but Paul Wilson gets an even better one on the inside line, and it's going to be Wilson, I think, who's just ahead as they get to turn 1. Yes, it is, with second under braking James Sharrock, and right round the outside tries to go Burke. It doesn't pay off for him, and so it's the green car that leads the way. As you're on board with Mark Shaw, Wilson is up front, and Mark Shaw has found himself with quite a bit of work to do. Yesterday, he was way down in 14th place. He's about to make a move against Paul Fleury. He goes up on the inside line. Is that going to work? Yes, it should do. Peter Ratcliffe in 21, also there trying to gain places. He got stronger and stronger at Brands Hatch as the weekend wore on, and again for these cars, it's a 30-minute race. On board with Mark Shaw. He's racing Formula 3, he's racing Formula 3000. In terms of experience, he's the top man on the grid. But in Caterham's, it's a very good level playing field, these types of cars, able to really help those less experienced drivers. As long as you're brave and you can use a slipstream, you're going to be competitive. And Paul Wilson leads the way. Second at the moment is Darren Burke as they come downhill. Ian Payne has lost a whole heap of places over the last couple of corners, but it's Wilson up front. After the problems at Brands Hatch, that one non-finish, for example, really hurting his championship hopes, he knows he's got to score well here. You're on board now with Mark Shaw, climbing uphill, heading to the next left-right flick. One or two using the curbs to their advantage, although somebody bounces out wide, and Mark Shaw has got the momentum. Is he going to be able to pounce on the way up the hill now? You can see cars weaving around from one side of the road to the other, looking for the gap. It doesn't quite present itself. Ian Payne at the back of this leading group of cars. And you're on board with him now as he tries to work out how he's going to work his way past the traffic. It's Paul O'Neill just up ahead of him. The touring car racer having a guest drive in the championship. He was 9th in the first race yesterday. Can he go better than that? Not if Ian Payne has a say in it, he won't. Payne right up alongside O'Neill. He's on the outside though, coming up towards the chicane. Paul Wilson leads the way. Darren Burke, who has shone in Formula 4 1600, particularly historic Formula 4 in the last few years, doesn't have a huge budget to go racing, but whatever you put him in, he goes quickly. We've seen him race in the Speed Euro Series and now in Caterham's. Just trying to keep his name known, trying to remind people that he's a quick driver and worth investing in. Replay of the start. Darren Burke in the red number 62 car from pole position, makes a good start straight away, tries to cut across and defend, but Paul Wilson has made an even better start from the staggered grid, and he's on the inside line, and James Sharrock on the outside, and Ian Payne on the inside also. They all get past Darren Burke, who then brakes even later, tries to claw back some of those lost places round the outside. One or two drivers running out of road, scrabbling for grip through the first corner, and Ian Payne has also run wide and losing out there. Flick Haig tries to get past him. Racing Caterham's at this level, the top line Caterham Motorsport Championship, you've got all the best drivers out there. One tiny error can cost you a whole heap of ground. back on board with Payne, looking to try to move up as he comes towards the chicane. Can't do it there, I don't think, as the leaders work their way left and then right. Paul Wilson trying to preserve that race lead as Mark Shaw there goes up on the inside to try to take a place away from John Walker, which he does, and Walker losing a couple of places there. Not to Ian Payne though, over the line they come. Payne is in the slipstream. He needs to make that move now, heading down towards the first corner. Now this is the replay of what happened to Ian Payne, going through the S's, uses the curbs, cones go flying ahead of him, bits of detritus flung into his face as well. And he tries to squeeze up on the inside, but the gap closes coming into the Coca-Cola curve. John Walker sheds a traffic cone from underneath, loses a place, and then tries to cut across and tighten the line. Shaw goes through. Right up with him is Paul Brannan in the black and orange car there, and a sideways John Walker just hangs onto the place ahead of Ian Payne. Paul Wilson is leading, and he's getting away from the opposition. They are now busy squabbling behind, and that means the gaps are opening up. There's a car off the road there, going no further. That's down at the bottom of the hill. And it's going to be a yellow flag zone for the next lap as Paul O'Neill loses out to Mark Shaw, who comes up on the inside, and Shaw goes by. Mark, on his return to racing, has been a real star in Caterham's, although in many respects you'd expect him, given his experience, to just be the dominant driver. Far from it. He's been a winner, he's a regular front runner, but this year is all about Paul Wilson. Yellow flag waving. Are we going to get a safety car? I think we are. Yep, there it is, being deployed. The safety car heads out onto the circuit, and so the lead that Paul Wilson had built up over Darren Burke is about to disappear. James Sharrock runs in third place. Now this is a replay on board with Mark Shaw going down towards the first corner. This is the start of the race. He gets squeezed a bit on the inside. There are one or two locking up ahead of him. And Shaw just tries to find a gap. Paul Fleury to the left of him. And there, look, on the very inside, 22, that's Nathan Lindop. He gets past the pair of them. And Shaw forced out wide. 2 places lost there. So he's facing a whole heap of traffic to work away past. We're about to go racing once again here at the Nurburgring. The lights are out atop the safety car. And Paul Wilson, who's dropped a long, long way back here, weaving around, trying to keep the warmth in the tyres. And now he starts to accelerate, so as the cars work their way through the chicane, Wilson it is, controlling the pace. Once you accelerate, you've got to keep accelerating rather than go and slow and stack everybody up in a dangerous fashion behind. So Wilson controls the pace nicely. He comes out of the last corner and now sprints away. Darren Burke runs second behind him, the winner of race 1 of the weekend. Can he do the double? It's not going to be easy if you're behind Paul Wilson. Down they go towards turn 1. Third is James Sharrock. Fourth is Mark Shaw, looking for a way on the outside and then the inside to pick up a place, but to no avail. Door closed. Through the right-hander they go now. You're riding with Mark Shaw. He heads downhill and then through the left-hander out of the Mercedes arena. He's about to lose a place if he's not careful. He's being hung out to dry on the outside. Paul O'Neill it is, challenging on the inside. Touring car racers know how to stick out their elbows and argue about a place, but Mark Shaw has lots of Caterham knowledge and he gives O'Neill no room at all. Forces him out wide and still Paul O'Neill bags the place. Great move. Really brave stuff. Then he gives a toe to Mark Shaw. He's got the momentum, and so Shaw pounces as he goes through. Mark Shaw takes back his place. Paul O'Neill adapting pretty well, I reckon, to Caterham's. If you can win races in the BTCC, you can run at the front in Caterham's, that's for sure. But Paul Wilson is getting away now. Darren Burke second, but he's not living with him on this restart. Paul Wilson is trying to build up the lead and also take back his championship lead here. Wilson looking for a 6th victory of the season. Mark Coling off the road there, off by the side of the circuit. Now let's have a quick look at Ian Payne's start. Remember, he did the double at Brands Hatch, so Ian Payne, one of the front runners. Out go the lights. He makes a decent enough getaway. You see Darren Burke try to move across on Paul Wilson, but Wilson is already there, so Burke can't live with him. Sharrock round the outside. Payne gets past Darren Burke as well. They all scrabble into the first corner. Burke brakes really late, tries to go to the outside, but runs out of road, so it's Wilson ahead. But there is Burke, look, who keeps on coming. He stands his ground on that line, and it pays off because coming through the second part of the Mercedes arena, he's on the inside, he's up into second place. Back live as Darren Burke on the inside, brakes a bit late, runs deep. Mark Shaw is compromised and Ian Payne tries to go around the outside. It doesn't work, and so it is still Darren Burke hanging onto his place here. This, at the moment, is one of the best battles on the circuit. The race leader, Paul Wilson, is getting away, and that's because they are all so busy squabbling behind him. One more lap to run, I reckon, looking at the clock as they come over the line. And Darren Burke is going to be mugged in a straight line. He's great through the corners, but he's giving away a toe, and Ian Payne gets a double toe. He's past Burke, he's almost past Shaw. He brakes for the Mercedes Arena. Shaw brakes even later, locks up, goes wide, and Ian Payne picks up the place, and that's the end of Paul O'Neill's chances. There's damage on the front of the car. And out is number 29, out is Paul O'Neill, and this is how it all happened. He was behind that battle we saw. So Ian Payne makes his move on the inside, and Paul O'Neill hits the back of Darren Burke. As Burke turned in, O'Neill swipes him, and that does enough damage to the front of Paul O'Neill's car to put him out of the race. Paul Wilson leads the way, Ian Payne second, and then in third is James Sharrock as Paul Wilson wins the race for the 6th time this year. Paul Wilson wins. Second is Ian Payne, and who's going to be third? James Sharrock versus Darren Burke over the line. A virtual dead heat between them, but it's Sharrock who takes the place, but only just. Darren Burke 27 thousandths off the podium. Mark Shaw 5th, a bit frustrated I think with that, and 6th Paul Branham. So Paul Wilson wins, and that is going to put him back into the lead of the title race. Ian Payne second, James Sharrock takes third ahead of Darren Burke. Shaw is 5th, and Paul Brannan rounds out the top 6.
That was a good race. The plan was to get the jump at the start, and if I got in front, I knew I could hopefully get out of there and stuff. But I got to say the DPR car was great, and the boys and also my dad and brother have been working a lot on it recently. So I got to thank those guys really.
Ian, talk us through that. That was a proper fight in the middle of the pack, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't the best of start. Well, it was a good start, and then I just got mugged. So I went 5th, 6th, 7th. My hair got in the way, obviously. You can hear the boys. And then back at 8th, and I just thought, you know what, it's time to sort this out. And then luckily we had a safety car, so we picked it up again. I think most of the other guys in front, their tyres started to go off, and I was drawing them in, but there's nothing I could do about it. So I had to do a couple of little shinks, a couple of dummies, but we just about managed to get in front of them. But Spy Motorsport and Borrow done a fantastic job on the car, so it was working really well throughout the race.
The championship now looks like this. That man Wilson is back at the top, just 2 points clear of Mark Shaw. Ian Payne is now third, Peter Ratcliffe 4th, 5th is James Sharrock, and Magma Haffel is 6th. There are 4 races to go. There are 2 at Rockingham, but the next pair will take the teams to Norfolk. The next races are at Snetterton.